May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. I never know what to do. Good morning. Today is International Women's Day, and also this text is very complicated. It's a complicated story about a complicated woman in the Gospels on this day. I really didn't want to get it wrong, so I went to the library and to try to get to the heart of the matter, what's going on in this long and complicated text. What I discovered is that for this story, it's actually very hard to get at the thing. There are entire books that are called Feminist Companions to the Gospel of John. And if you open the book, half of the articles are about the Samaritan woman. And so everyone has something to say about what's going on. One of the more entertaining, interesting commentaries talks about they call it the modern difficulties, but what they really mean is like the historical inaccuracies that we in the modern day have difficulties with. So here it goes. In ancient Palestine, for example, like this well is, it's 30 meters deep, which actually like 90 feet, I don't know, but like it's very, very deep. It's much deeper than you think. And then the well is 2.5 diameters wide, so like about this wide. It's a very, very big well. It's a very deep well. It's covered with a lid, and then there are 2 holes in it through which you lower a rope. And also the well is lined with stone the entire way down. So then this presents 2 problems. The first one is the woman didn't have a rope. And the second one is, I think it's not in this translation, but in the other ones, she has a clay jar. But you never go to the well with a clay jar. You go to the well with a leather gourd, because if you have a clay jar and you're lowering it with a rope, it's going to clatter against a stone for 30 meters and shatter. So like the commentaries are like this, she couldn't get water anyway. And then they said, let's also take a look at the disciples. There are 12 disciples or more. They're out to get food. The food that we think they were trying to get is like large rounds of pita bread, right? It takes 1 person, 2 people to carry it. You don't need 12 people. Why did they all go and leave Jesus alone, hungry, thirsty, tired? And finally, I was like, oh my goodness, because actually, Jacob's well is 2 kilometers away from the town called Sychar, but there's a spring in the middle of this town. So like she did not need to leave the town, go 2 kilometers to the well and get water when she could have stayed. So these historical inconsistencies, I think, make people, they say, we take this seriously, we don't take it literally, maybe we take it symbolically or allegorically. And so there are different ways of thinking about this symbolically. I think one of the most powerful ones goes back to who the Samaritan woman is. People point out, like, she represents the outcast. I think some people might have heard this, but that she is there at high noon by herself means that she is likely not accepted at a time when women would have gone in groups, and also they would have gone in the morning and the evening, not at noon. So she was not someone who was not accepted on the margins of this town. And yet she's the person that Jesus asks for water. She's also the first person, I think, in this gospel that Jesus evangelizes to. The other allegorical meaning is that, Jesus says you have 5 husbands. Did she really? we think the allegorical meaning is that the 5 husbands are the 5 gods that Samaria worshipped instead of Yahweh. And so this is an accusation against people outside the Jewish community for not turning to the true God. Another interpretation is the significance. You really look at the well, and it's not just any well, it's Jacob's well. In the Hebrew Bible, which I just found out, what happens at the well is this. If you're an important character, like Jacob or Leah, and you meet at the well, you end up getting married. So there are actually a lot of weddings and marriages and men and women going on around the well. And so, like, really some of the articles are called Water, Wedlock, and Worship, or Hydraulics, Husbands, and Holy Places. There's just so many ways of going into this text. And I think these are all useful interpretations, but at the same time, I think, and some commentators, like, this is the Gospel of John, not known for lively commentary. This is the liveliest commentary. This is the liveliest dialogue you'll ever get in the Gospel. So what's going on there? And I think so it's all these inconsistencies, but also the richnesses here make it such that we've sort of made her into a type, an archetype, a symbol. And I think, like, she stands for all the outcasts. She stands for the entire nation of Samaria. She stands for all women. She stands for all outcast women of, like, that we think are doing deviant things. Like, we project so much onto her that I think we've made her into an object. We're using her for our own opinions. We're often using her, I think, to work out our own theologies or read into it our own theologies, to work out our own anxieties, our, like, ethnic and national anxieties. We've just laid claim onto her story. But what if we don't? What if we take her not as object, but as subject? What if we gave her back her own agency? What if we let her live in her own story? I think, to me, the story is stripped to its essentials, and what I find so, so beautiful in this story is she's a woman. She might be outcast. She's walking towards the well at noon, and then Jesus is there. Jesus is sitting there. Jesus is hungry and tired and dusty, and Jesus asks her, "Give me a drink." I think, what does it mean for the woman to give Jesus water to drink and also in return to ask for the water of life? Jesus says, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, "Give me a drink," you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. So 2 things I want to say here, but first is the asking. Jesus asks, "Give me a drink." I think, and also the words, "if only you knew who it was." If only we knew it was Jesus, but she doesn't. But say we knew, say she knew, say you were there, imagine you were there walking softly through the desert to the well, knowing it was Jesus. And he says, "Give me a drink." I'd be like, who, me? And I think that's the point. Like, surely not me. None of us feel worthy, but Jesus asks us anyway. Dean Amy, when I started here as a seminarian, told me that one of the greatest gifts we can give each other, always, but especially here at this cathedral, is to ask for help. And so she said, like, you ask someone, I need a pencil to write a poem for the pilgrim. Do you have a pencil to give me? I need you, I need this pair of hands to take coffee to someone during lunch at Manna. Will you be that pair of hands? I'm tired, I'm thirsty. Will you give me a drink? Will you help me? To ask, then, I think, is the first part. And the second is to give. Recently, I have been supporting my friend who's just lost her dad. And so for the past 3 years, he had been sick, for most of it homebound and confused, and my friend had left her work in New York to go back to Vancouver to work from home and take care of her dad. And so every day she's taking care of him in the most humble ways. She was washing him, she was giving him food when he said, I am hungry. She was giving him water when he said, I'm thirsty. And when he passed, she called me and we were talking, and I asked her, how can I help? And I think this is not always a good question to ask. It's also one that honestly is really, really hard to answer. I didn't think she would answer. But how she answered has haunted me since that conversation. She said, Ivy, give me a time machine. Give me a time machine to bring me back to when my dad was still alive, and so he could still ask, give me a drink, and I could still give it to him. And when she said that, I remembered when my mother was sick. She was dying, and I was actually very busy running around, but I remember this one afternoon in the summer when, early summer, it was cherry season, and I had the biggest bowl of cherries, and we both really loved cherries, and so just the sacramentality of peeling cherries for her, because we were scared she'd swallow the pits, to peel the cherries, take out the pits, and to feed them to her, one by one. Make me a time machine, my friend said, so they can say again, I'm thirsty, give me drink, and we could say yes. What we wouldn't do, I think what all of us wouldn't do, to walk again towards the people that we love most, carrying the jug of water. And I think this, to me, is what the passage actually means, that when we ask for and when we give water from the well, through the time machine, like it's our only chance, our last chance, each and every time we encounter someone, to remember how infinitely precious and how infinitely beautiful that person in that moment is. And in Jesus' words, because we truly know who it is, to truly see the preciousness of this person in front of us. When we do this, then the water that we carry is transformed into living water. And how lucky we are. How lucky we are to still have so many opportunities to carry water for one another. How lucky we are to have the opportunities with the people we love, with all of God's people, to ask, give me a drink, to give, and to receive water in turn, and to know that each time we do this, we're taking in something of God, we're taking in something of one another, and we are taking in the water of life, the living water. Amen.